The cold wind bit against her cheeks as Alina hurried down the street, clutching her daughter's tiny hand. The world had not been kind to her. Left alone after her husband abandoned them, she worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. That evening, she was exhausted, her stomach empty, and her pockets carrying only a few crumpled bills meant for tomorrow's groceries. Yet as they passed a park bench, she saw him, an elderly man sitting hunched over, his face pale, his eyes distant, and his body trembling with hunger. Something inside her told her to stop, though she barely had anything left for herself. Her daughter tugged her sleeve, whispering, "Mama, he looks hungry." Alina swallowed hard, feeling the sting of tears. She had taught her little girl about kindness, but tonight was proof of whether those words meant anything. She reached into her worn-out bag and pulled out the half sandwich they had saved from lunch. Approaching the old man carefully, she bent down and offered it with gentle words, "Please, eat this. You look like you need it more than we do." His tired eyes widened in disbelief, as though he had been invisible until this very moment, and his hands shook as he accepted the small gift. The man ate slowly, tears mixing with each bite, as though the food carried not just nourishment but dignity. Alina sat beside him, keeping her daughter close, listening as he murmured his gratitude. He spoke of being abandoned by his children, of wandering with nowhere to belong, of days when he went to sleep hungry. Alina's heart clenched at his words, recognizing a pain similar to her own. She didn't ask for his past, she simply sat with him, letting him feel that he was not forgotten. The night grew colder, but for a moment, kindness warmed them all. After finishing the sandwich, the man leaned back, closing his eyes with relief. Alina gave him her scarf, even though she had only a thin sweater herself. "Please, keep it," she said softly when he tried to return it. The man nodded weakly, whispering, "You remind me of someone I lost long ago, my daughter." The words broke something in her chest. She wanted to give more but had nothing else. Before leaving, she promised to return the next day with something warm to eat. It wasn't much, but for her, it was everything she could give. That night, lying on the floor mattress with her daughter, Alina couldn't shake the image of the old man's hollow eyes. She wondered if anyone would ever care for her when she grew old, or if life would leave her just as forgotten. Despite her worries, she felt peace, knowing she had done the right thing. She prayed silently, asking for strength to keep going. Little did she know, that single act of kindness would change her life forever. The next morning, Alina woke early to head to her cleaning job. Her daughter stayed with a neighbor while she rushed into the grand corporate building she cleaned daily. The marble floors and polished glass walls were a sharp contrast to her world, yet she worked diligently, unnoticed by the people in suits who passed her. It was a life of invisibility, but she had grown used to it. What she didn't expect was that today, her invisible existence would suddenly be seen. As she scrubbed near the lobby, a sleek black car pulled up. The security guard straightened, and whispers spread, "The CEO is here." Alina glanced up briefly, then continued working. She had no time for curiosity. The tall man who stepped out of the car carried an aura of authority, his sharp features softened only by the sorrow etched in his eyes. He seemed distracted, almost heavy-hearted, as though carrying a burden no wealth could ease. Moments later, as Alina carried a bucket toward the elevator, she heard hurried footsteps behind her. "Wait," a deep voice called out. She turned, startled, to find the CEO himself standing before her, breathless. People around stared in confusion, wondering why the powerful man would stop a janitor. His gaze locked on hers, intense but filled with gratitude. It was you, wasn't it?" he asked. She froze, unsure what he meant, her heart racing. The CEO took a step closer, his voice trembling. "Last night, my father. He told me this morning about a woman and her child who fed him when he had nothing. That was you, wasn't it?" Alina's eyes widened, her lips parting in shock. She hadn't expected her small act to be remembered, let alone bring her face to face with the son of the man she had helped. Around them, the lobby grew silent, waiting for her answer. "Yes," she whispered softly, her voice almost breaking. "I didn't know who he was. He looked hungry." For a moment, the CEO stood there, emotions raw on his face. Then he swallowed hard, lowering his head slightly in respect. That man is my father. We had a falling out. I thought he would never forgive me. I searched for him for years. And last night, because of you, he finally called me home. His words cracked, and his eyes glistened. The air around them shifted. Employees who had once ignored her now looked at Alina differently. But she didn't bask in the attention, her thoughts went only to the old man, relieved he had found his son again. I'm glad, she whispered. Family is precious. Don't waste this chance. The CEO nodded, visibly moved. For the first time, the powerful man seemed small and vulnerable, just a son reunited with a father he thought was lost forever. Later that day, Alina was invited to a private office where the CEO introduced her to his father once more. The old man, now in clean clothes and cared for, reached for her hands. My angel, he said, tears streaming down his face. Because of you, I have my son back. You gave me more than food, you gave me hope. Alina wept silently, overwhelmed by the depth of his gratitude. Her daughter clung to her side, confused but smiling as the room filled with warmth. The CEO sat across from them, watching in silence. His gaze carried respect, admiration, and something deeper, a recognition of a strength beyond wealth. You've taught me a lesson I'll never forget, he finally said. Money can build empires, but kindness builds bridges. You've shown me what really matters. Alina lowered her eyes, embarrassed by the praise, feeling she had done nothing extraordinary. To her, it was simple humanity. In the following weeks, Alina's life began to change. The CEO offered her a position at his company, not as charity, but because he saw her determination and resilience. At first, she hesitated, worried about pride and perception, but eventually, she accepted. With better pay and stability, she could finally provide her daughter with opportunities she had only dreamed of before. Yet through it all, she remained humble, never forgetting where she came from. Her daughter thrived, her laughter brighter, her eyes filled with hope. The old man often visited, becoming like a grandfather to the child who had once shared her sandwich with him. Alina found herself part of a family she never expected, one built not on blood alone but on compassion. The CEO too visited often, slowly weaving himself into their lives, not with grand gestures but with genuine presence and respect. As months passed, Alina realized that what she gave that night had returned to her tenfold, not in riches but in love and belonging. She had spent years believing she was invisible, just a single mother struggling to survive. But now she understood her worth lay not in her circumstances but in her heart. And it was her heart that had brought light into lives far beyond her own. One evening, as they all sat together, Alina, her daughter, the old man, and the CEO, there was laughter around the table. The old man raised a glass of water, his voice steady but emotional. To kindness, he said. To the woman who reminded me that even in the darkest nights, a single act of love can change everything. They all echoed the toast, their eyes shining with gratitude. In that moment, Alina looked around and felt something she hadn't felt in years, peace. She realized she didn't need wealth or status to be significant. Her life had meaning because she had chosen compassion, even when she had little to give. That choice had rippled outward, binding strangers into family, healing wounds, and reminding them all of the power of humanity. Her story spread quietly within the company, whispered among employees who once overlooked her. To them, she became a symbol of hope, proof that kindness mattered more than titles or positions. Though Alina never sought recognition, she accepted it with grace, knowing that if her story inspired even one more act of compassion, it was worth it. By the end of the year, Alina stood taller, not because her struggles had disappeared, but because she had discovered her strength. She was no longer just a single mom fighting the world alone, she was a woman whose kindness had rewritten destinies. And as she held her daughter close, she silently promised that no matter how hard life became, they would always lead with love. For in the end, it was love that changed everything. That night after the toast, Alina tucked her daughter into bed with a heart so full it almost frightened her. For years, life had only dealt her hardships, and now she worried that this happiness might be fleeting, like a dream she would wake from too soon. But as she looked at her daughter's peaceful face, she reminded herself that kindness had led her here, and kindness would carry her forward. Still, she couldn't ignore the flicker of doubt. Would this newfound stability last, or would the weight of the past drag her down again? The next morning, Alina stepped into her new role at the company. No longer a janitor sweeping unnoticed in the corners, she now worked as an assistant in the administration office. The tasks were daunting, managing schedules, handling documents, and answering calls, but she embraced them with quiet determination. At first, many colleagues judged her, whispering about how she had caught the CEO's attention. Yet Alina ignored the rumors, focusing instead on learning every skill, proving that she belonged not because of pity, but because of her perseverance. One day, as she carefully organized files, a woman from her department approached with a sneer. "Not everyone here thinks you deserve this job," she said coldly. "Some of us worked years to get here." Alina's chest tightened, but she lifted her chin and replied softly, "I'm not here to compete, only to work hard. I hope in time, I'll earn your respect." The woman walked away, unimpressed, but a few coworkers overheard and were touched by Alina's humility. Slowly, small cracks began forming in the wall of resentment around her. Meanwhile, the old man, Mr. Hassan, grew stronger with each passing week. With his son by his side once again, he often visited Alina and her daughter, bringing small gifts, fresh fruit, books, or handmade toys. He treated Alina as though she were his own daughter, and her child became the granddaughter he had long dreamed of holding close. The bond between them deepened, healing wounds of abandonment and filling Alina's home with warmth she had never thought possible. The CEO, whose name was Amir, began spending more time with them as well. At first, it was simply to thank Alina, but soon, it became clear that he was drawn not just by gratitude but by something deeper. He admired her quiet strength, her ability to endure hardship with grace, and the way she always put her daughter first. Yet Amir held back, afraid his position of power might make her uncomfortable, or that his interest would feel like charity rather than genuine affection. One evening, after a long day at work, Amir walked Alina and her daughter home. As they reached the small apartment building, Alina turned to him with a smile. "You don't have to do this every time," she said softly. He looked into her eyes, struggling to find the right words. "I know," he admitted, "but I want to. Because when I walk beside you, I remember what truly matters." Her breath caught, and though she didn't reply, her heart stirred in ways she hadn't felt in years. Still, challenges lingered. Alina's past debts haunted her, the bills stacked from years of struggle. Even with her new salary, it was difficult to stay ahead. One night, her landlord threatened eviction, claiming she was behind on rent. Panic rose within her, but she refused to ask Amir for help. She wanted to stand on her own, to prove that she wasn't leaning on anyone's pity. Quietly, she worked overtime, sacrificing sleep, determined to keep her dignity intact. Amir noticed her exhaustion and pressed gently one afternoon. "You've been skipping meals, haven't you?" he asked. She avoided his gaze, embarrassed. "I'll manage," she whispered. His heart ached at her pride, but he respected it. Instead of offering money outright, he began sending small gestures, leaving healthy meals at her desk, arranging flexible shifts so she could rest, and even finding after-school programs for her daughter. He didn't want to rescue her, he wanted to support her journey. Her daughter flourished in those programs, learning dance and art, her laughter filling the apartment each evening. One day, she ran to Alina, holding up a colorful drawing. "Mama, this is our family," she said proudly, pointing at the figures, Alina, herself, Grandpa Hassan, and Amir. Alina's heart melted at the sight, though she gently reminded her daughter that Amir was just a friend. But deep down, she wondered if fate was weaving something more. As weeks turned into months, Alina began to feel a quiet transformation. No longer defined by her struggles, she discovered a strength she hadn't realized she carried. Her coworkers, once skeptical, now admired her perseverance and kindness. Even the woman who once sneered began to soften, offering a shy smile one afternoon. Alina didn't just change her own life, her humility and compassion began changing the people around her. One Friday evening, Amir invited Alina and her daughter to a company charity gala. At first, she hesitated, feeling out of place among glittering gowns and polished shoes. But when Amir reassured her, saying, "You belong more than anyone, because you're the reason this company has heart," she reluctantly agreed. That night, dressed in a simple but elegant borrowed dress, she walked into the hall with grace, unaware that she would become the quiet center of attention. During the event, Amir shared the story of how his father had been reunited with him, without revealing Alina's name until the end. As he spoke, the crowd listened in silence, their eyes misting with emotion. Then he turned toward Alina, his voice steady. "And it was this woman, with nothing to her name but love in her heart, who gave my father hope and gave me back my family." The room erupted in applause as Alina froze, stunned, her cheeks flushed with humility. Tears welled in her eyes as Amir guided her to the stage, his hand steady on her back. "This is Alina," he said proudly. "The woman who reminded me that true wealth is kindness." Alina trembled under the lights, but when she looked into the crowd, she saw not judgment, but admiration. She spoke softly, "I only did what I hoped someone would do for me if I were in his place." Her words silenced the room again, piercing hearts with their sincerity. That night, as they returned home, Alina felt different. For the first time, she wasn't just surviving, she was living with purpose. She had not only changed her own path but had touched countless others. Amir walked beside her in silence, until finally, he whispered, "You inspire me, Alina." Every day. Her heart swelled, but she still hesitated, uncertain if her broken past made her worthy of love again. Mr. Hassan, however, saw clearly what they both tried to deny. One evening, while sipping tea at Alina's home, he leaned toward her with a gentle smile. "My son has built many things in this world," he said softly, "but I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Don't let fear steal what love is offering you." Alina lowered her gaze, her hands trembling. She wasn't sure if she could accept such love, but the seed of hope had been planted. As winter approached, storms tested her resolve. The company faced a crisis, and Amir's leadership was challenged. Whispers of betrayal and financial loss spread, threatening everything he had built. Alina watched him carry the weight, his shoulders heavy, yet he never stopped showing kindness to those around him. She realized then that he, too, was human, just like her, struggling, enduring, and longing for connection. One late night, she found him alone in his office, staring at piles of documents. Without a word, she placed a cup of coffee before him. He looked up, exhausted, and saw the same compassion in her eyes that his father had once described. "Don't give up," she told him firmly. "You're not alone anymore." In that moment, something shifted between them, an unspoken bond, stronger than words, rooted in trust and shared pain. The storm passed, and Amir emerged stronger, his company steadied, his faith renewed. But more than that, he realized that the one thing he could not lose was Alina. She had stood by him without expectation, without fear, offering nothing but sincerity. And that, he knew, was the rarest gift of all. As the year turned, whispers of a new chapter grew louder in Alina's heart. Life had tested her, broken her, and rebuilt her. Yet through every storm, she had chosen kindness, and kindness had led her here, to family, to hope, and perhaps, to love waiting just around the corner. And this time, she wasn't afraid to walk toward it.